used to be known as Emma, but now I go by X, and I use they, them pronouns. Happy Pride. I'm not a girl. We are the survivors of gun violence.
Wow. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, the younger generation is doomed, right? Absolutely doomed. They have no clue what is going on. They have no clue whatsoever. But with that being said, the Parkland political activists are back, right? I'm not calling them kids because they're not kids, and calling them kids makes it so it's much easier to be sympathetic towards the fact that they're now woke political activists, right? They're not children anymore. They're woke political activists, right? And they should be treated as such. Because they're out here, right, basically pushing for more gun control, aka gun confiscation and banning of guns, because that's actually really what they want, right? And to push their agenda of banning guns, they propose policies and solutions that, in my opinion, are going to actually make people less safe. And what I hate about this is that they try to use black people as a means to push for policies that are going to make people less safe, specifically when we're talking about kids in school less safe, right? Because one of the things that they're saying, right, in their speeches is that we should not have more armed security in schools, right? They're saying we shouldn't have more police officers in schools because allegedly police officers make it less safe for non-white students. Take a look.
You say that you want to protect children, but as soon as it's about black lives, you're all for tear gassing protesting children in the streets and ignoring the people who drive their cars into crowds of us. You say that queer and trans identities are immoral for children, but somehow conversations about what to do when a white supremacist terrorist inevitably tries to kill us are moral. You say that children are the future and you never fucking listen to what we say once we're old enough to disagree with you, you decaying degenerates. You really want to protect children? Have some with us! Of mass shootings and schools. This is a problem everywhere in this country. Believing that school shootings are the only form of gun violence that needs to be eradicated is rooted in racism and classism. Putting police in schools will only protect children. Putting police in schools to protect children only swells the school to prison pipeline, which mainly affects black and brown children. And fully ignores the dangers of gun violence outside of school.
We are working together to address this. As a country, we must feel and address why these shootings continue. We also must address the fact that mental health does have a role to play in stopping gun violence, but that racism is not a mental illness. Hatred, racism, radicalization, xenophobia are not mental illnesses. 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides. Mental health does have a role to play in addressing that. We need to address the fact that black and brown communities are traumatized daily by gun violence, and they don't get the same resources or support that Parkland did. Every community deserves the support that Parkland got. Every single community. That is the role that mental health plays here. Let's stop using mental health as a scapegoat for confronting white supremacy in our country. Let's remember that the argument of just funding more mental health has been tried constantly again and again, and we do need to fund mental health more while recognizing racism is not a mental illness. But let's also recognize, after Columbine, they said, you know what we need is more good guys with guns in our schools. Let's remember, let's think for a second. Yeah! Teachers feel the same way. Thank you to NEA and AFT for being here. I'll talk about you in a minute. We love you. Let's remember, there was a good guy with a gun at my high school. He only proved to be a coward with a gun. Let's remember that in Texas, outside of the school, there were 19 good guys with guns, heavily armored and trained, and they failed. First responders need to be the last resort and not the first to saving our kids from gun violence. Because the reality is putting more cops in schools hasn't worked, and it won't, because it only is going to keep... Let's think about who actually is made more safe by that, but also realize that putting more cops in schools actually may be a form of endangering our students as well. For the students that don't have the privilege of having my skin color, or the fact that I am an American citizen.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I cannot stand woke white liberals. Okay, because they use black people as a scapegoat to push for policies that are not going to be beneficial or help protect or save black lives. Okay, but again, they use black people as a means to get what they want without actually thinking about the effect that it's going to have on black folks. Because again, listen to David Hogg and his argument. It doesn't even make sense. He's saying, well, putting cops in school, I'll admit, it protects people like me because I'm white. Right? I got white privilege. Okay? Because he wants the virtue signal. He wants the praise and the accolades for being a white male to acknowledge his privilege. Right? But the reality of what he's saying is it just doesn't make any sense, because it's like, if something was to happen in a school where a police officer would need to be involved, right? Let's say somebody enters the schools or whatever, somebody tries to commit a mass shooting, that police officer is not going to be thinking, oh my God, how many black students are here? This school is majority black. I'm not going to protect these kids, right? I'm not going to do my job. Okay, an officer that's going to be a coward in that situation is going to be a coward regardless of what the racial makeup of the school is, right? So how can it protect one group of people but not protect another group of people? I don't understand that. And if he's talking about how, well, you know, cops and their interactions with black folks, and he's trying to extrapolate that as if, you know, there's some type of police brutality or some type of bias going on in school between police officers and, you know, black students, I would say, well, most likely if the police officer is interacting with a black student in school, it's because the black student is acting up, right? It's because the student is acting up in school. They're getting in a fight. They're causing problems. They're disrupting class. They're doing something that warrants the officer having to step in, right? But again, they don't believe in accountability, right? They don't believe in personal responsibility for black folks because they don't think black folks are capable of that, right? But the reality of the situation here is that if you were to remove armed security from school, you remove police officers from school, it doesn't matter what race you are, you're going to be in danger, right? Because an armed lunatic who comes in to try to commit a mass shooting, if there's no resistance, if there's no defense, again, everybody in that school is in danger, right? Which means black lives are in danger, okay? And he wants to ignore the times in which police officers have stepped up and prevented mass shooting or kids from getting hurt in school. For example, I just did a story the other day out of Alabama about how a police officer basically stopped a lunatic from trying to get into an elementary school to potentially harm kids. That was an incident that happened back in 2013 in Denver, Colorado, in which there was an 18-year-old armed with a shotgun that tried to go into a high school to commit a mass shooting. However, a school resource officer, upon hearing those gunshots, right, ran towards the mass shooter, and the guy basically ended his own life before he could kill a bunch of kids. Now, unfortunately, he did end up shooting one girl in the head with his shotgun, and she ended up dying 8 days later. But the damage would have been more massive, okay? More students would have been killed had police officers and armed security not been there, right? Because they was there and they was running towards a situation, the shooter knew that they was coming. He knew he was about to get clapped. He decided to take his own life, which saved a lot of lives, okay? So, again, in a situation like that, think about it. This guy had a shotgun. You know, for the most part, you know, the gun lunatics, they definitely want to ban all guns. But for the most part, what they're asking for really is to ban modern sporting rifles. Okay, they say, some of them say, well, we'll let you keep your shotguns. However, again, mass shootings can be committed with shotguns as well too. You can kill people with shotguns. You can kill people with handguns. So if you take away everybody's guns, or you put it this way, you take away armed security, and somebody comes into a school with a gun, right, a shotgun or whatever, or a gun that's obtained illegally, what are you gonna do? Where's the defense at? Schools are gonna be defenseless. That's exactly what these people are asking for. Just like they're asking for these neighborhoods where all this gun violence is happening, right? These black and brown neighborhoods they claim they care about so much. They come out here and want to defund the police so that there's no protection in those communities as well, right? But the problem in those communities, again, that these people like David Hogg and González, right, don't want to acknowledge is that it's the criminals. It's not the guns, it's the criminals, because the criminals are going to get the guns regardless of whether or not they're legal or illegal. They don't care about whether or not it's against the law to obtain the gun. That's why they're criminals. They don't care about the law, right? And evidence of that is this tweet right here that AOC put out, in which she basically tried to blame America's rise in violence on conservatives, but shares a list of cities run by Democrats, right? It's evidence that the rising violence that are going on in these cities is caused by conservatives, which makes absolutely no sense. So actually, let's actually read this. As she was responding to Jim Jordan here, in which he said, when is the primetime hearing on record crime in Democrat-run cities? Which, again, is a good idea. Maybe the Republicans should do that. When they take back power, if this crime problem is still a thing, I'm pretty sure it will be, maybe they should do a hearing on that. It'd be nice. AOC says in response, according to CBS News, out of the top 10 deadliest cities in America, 7 of them are in Republican-run states. Basically, the question is, who runs those cities, right? And turns out that out of the top 20 most dangerous cities in this country, most of those cities, a vast majority of them, are run by Democrats, right? They're run by Democrats, okay? They might be in red states. Some of them might be in red states, but they're run by Democrats. So what does that tell you? That the gun laws in those cities aren't working, right? They don't work. Criminals still get the guns. They still obtain the guns illegally, and they still use them. And guess what? The people that are suffering the most are the people that are being left defenseless because they are law-abiding citizens, and they're not trying to obtain guns illegally. They're having to obtain guns legally, and they have to jump through extra hoops because of people like David Hogg and González who are advocating for them to have to jump through extra hoops that criminals don't have to jump through. But then they'll turn around and tell you that, oh, we care about the safety and protection of black and brown people. We care about black lives. When you want to blame everybody for black lives being lost, except the people that are actually taking the black lives, the criminals, right? They want to blame white supremacy. They want to blame the guns, right? But again, these are the same people that, again, try to act like, well, we know best for black folks, right? We know best for you. And all they're really doing is using black people as scapegoats to push policies that they want that really aren't going to be beneficial at all to the people they claim they care about so much. That's the reality situation, and that is what annoys me so much about these woke liberals who come out here and virtue signal like this. They're simply using black people as a means to get something that has nothing to do with the betterment of black folks, right? And also what I want to address here, one last thing, is the fact that David Hogg said, well, racism isn't a mental illness. Basically alluding to the idea that people are using mental health as an excuse not to talk about so-called white supremacy, right? And my response to that would be, well, racism definitely is probably not a mental health issue, but anybody who would act on their racism in a way in which they would go out and commit a mass shooting probably does have a mental health issue, right? Again, the racism in and of itself might not be a mental health problem, but acting on that racism to the point where you want to go out and kill people, commit mass atrocities against innocent folks because of their race, yeah, that definitely is a mental problem, because only a lunatic will want to do something like that, right? Only a lunatic will want to do something like that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.